Welcome back to Irish Illustrated Overtime. I'm Tim O'Malley, joined by Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, John Bryce of FootballScoop.com. And guys, 23-13, Notre Dame goes into the heart of Texas and beats number 20 Texas A&M to start the season. If I were to tell you that they would not give up a sack, they would average 5.8 rushing yards, and they would churn out 106 fourth quarter rushing yards, you might have thought 35-13, but no, it was a struggle for the first half. It means a lot, I believe, for this team to pull through in this environment, because when Notre Dame took a 13-6 lead on a Jadarian Price touchdown jaunt, we thought they're gonna hang on to this one. A&M answered, tied the score, and it was Notre Dame all the way in the fourth quarter.
Well, this was, we said all along that this is a game that Notre Dame had to prove it. Look, it doesn't matter whether Texas A&M is a world beater yet. They're not going to be under Mike Elko quite yet, but this is a difficult venue to come into and play. We knew about like we talked about all the strengths that both teams had, and A&M has a bunch of 4- and 5-star players with a really good defensive line. And for most of the night, that defensive line was a handful for Notre Dame's offensive line. But think about what this offensive line did and how much better it can be over time to rush for 198 yards and 5.8 yards per carry. You had to be resilient because they weren't coming early. In fact, when they had those back-to-back long runs and one was negated, that was in the second quarter. Prior to that, Notre Dame had 10 yards rushing. And so that was the beginning of the breakthrough. But just really happy for Marcus Freeman and his team, because they believed and they knew they had to come out here and show it, and they did.
And I give T.O. a lot of credit for pointing out in instant analysis post-game that Notre Dame, by and large, was the fastest team on the field tonight. And I think that's highly significant. I'm going to continue to harp on that. The floor has been so elevated for Notre Dame. The floor has what we talked about in practice and how much more efficient practice was overall through fall camp, because you had quality depth 1 through 4 overall, so that you could two-spot and do basically 2 simultaneous practices over the course of camp. And I thought, yes, Notre Dame had a lot of penalties tonight, but I thought Notre Dame, by and large, looked like a very prepared football team, certainly looked like an incredibly prepared coaching staff. Freeman, Golden, Denbrock, Biaggi, these guys look good. Al Washington had to really work his defensive line rotation a lot, but he did a nice job with it. Max Bullis linebackers played incredibly well. The wide receiver room did some nice things with very limited opportunities. And I think it's worth noting, we were all on field pregame. I lingered down there a little bit more than you guys, and on 2 or 3 different visits since we got here so early. There were a number of NFL scouts on that field pregame. Oh, yeah. I've been waiting to share this. The NFL scouts, you could hear them talking about the fact that Texas A&M didn't look like a first-year program. Looked like they still had a bunch of dudes. They were there comparing notes on a bunch of Texas A&M's players in this pregame, NFL scouts from all over. And Notre Dame didn't have nearly as many dudes top to bottom as what Texas A&M had, but Notre Dame had dudes when it mattered, had better dudes in some key positions, and I think that's why the Irish won this game, along with the belief. Yes, Notre Dame has had a long reputation of being this scrappy team that will play fundamentally sound and give itself a chance to win. Well, now it's a scrappy team that believes it can win and has a lot better athleticism, including at the quarterback position.
We figured a rock fight was coming 6 months ago. About 6 weeks ago, we realized it was assured when Charles Jagaso went down, and you were going to go very young on the offensive line, 3 first-time starters against dudes, as John Bryce said. And there was the predictable hiccups. There's probably 3 handfuls of gains of 2 yards or less for Notre Dame. But Riley Leonard delivered in a way that not since, I don't want to slight Jack Cohn because he actually won a couple games coming back, but Riley Leonard delivered in a way that not since Ian Book would you have thought when the game was tied and Notre Dame was at his own 15-yard line. I think he's going to drive them down the field. You could see the confidence growing. You realized the ball's going in his hand. He had what someone called next to be one of the ugliest 9-yard runs you've ever seen. Well, that's what started the drive, because Riley Leonard will find a way, and he actually threw one of his 3 best passes on that drive too, hitting Bo Collins. He has toughness. He has grit. He's going to have to get more accurate, and he's going to be under a little bit less duress as time goes on. JB and I were walking up to him after our post-game instant analysis, and I said, you know what? That defensive line was tough. Notre Dame's offensive line, even Notre Dame's offense faces another defensive line, let's say someone manifests and becomes as good as A&M, Notre Dame's offense will be better at that point in the season. This was the test.
No, you're absolutely right. And John, to your point about the scouts down on the field, we were standing near the corner of the end zone. There was a Minnesota Vikings scout that clearly was staring down Nick Scorton. And Tim, I think you were with me there. It's like, okay, look at all these defensive linemen. Yeah, they've got a bunch and they look good, but the offensive line,
they fought the whole
game. They negated the pass rush, which is really, I mean, it's really incredible. They had 40, A&M had 40 sacks last year. They had 0 tonight. Yeah. And it sure helps to Tim, to your point about Riley Leonard running the football. It sure is nice to have a quarterback again that on 1st and 10, an ugly 9-yard run or an 8-yard run, but now it's 2nd and 2. And you really, you open up so much more of Mike Denbrock's playbook when he can do something like that. They threw the ball to nine different players caught passes. I think there was at one point, Tim, when we said during the game, like maybe this wide receiver core isn't as far along as we thought. And I think that that's still true to an extent because they don't have a number one. But they ended up doing so many positives in the fourth quarter that negated a lot of the negatives that we were talking about during the game.
Before I turn over to you, JB, I want to point out 2 positives by Jaden Thomas because he's not going to have a great year receiving. Jaden Thomas saved an interception touchdown with the best offensive pass breakup I have seen in a very long time. And Jaden Thomas threw a key block on Jadarian Price's 47-yard run. And this is an important point Adam B makes. Leonard is amazing at avoiding sacks. That's also why they did not give up sacks. He sees it and he gets rid of it.
Right. Yeah.
And he flowed up in the pocket a couple of different times, such as it was breaking down, but had the presence of mind. And we talked about this all the way back in August when we watched some of the footwork drills over on the practice fields, how adept he was at avoiding the manufactured foam dummies that they put on the ground. You've got to have your footwork between them while keeping your eyes downfield. He did that so adroitly in practice. We saw it again tonight. I thought that was significant. TP, you point out they had 40 sacks a year ago. They had 40 sacks a year ago and also brought in Nick Scorton this year to add to that sort of menacing defense. And, yeah, this is the best defense that Notre Dame will face all year. I think we'll look at the NFL draft in April of 2025, and that will bear out how good this defense was. And another thing I would point out, it's been a really long time since Notre Dame won a game of this magnitude on the road against this type of quality opponent. Marcus Freeman's had signature wins each of his first 2 years, year 1 against Clemson, year 2 against USC. This is a different animal. This is a different statement to the entire country. And we saw on game day, a lot of the national folks did not pick Notre Dame to win and said that College Station and the atmosphere here would be a deciding factor. And I don't think the penalties were all based on the atmosphere at all. Some of the penalties were just new guys playing together for the first time ever. So you made the reference to Ian Book. I was at a Notre Dame event Friday night down here in College Station, and somebody was asking me about Riley Leonard and didn't know a lot. And I said, it's hard to express how much respect I already have for him. And I called him a rich man's Ian Book. So you had the Ian Book reference a minute ago, T.O., and it's very pertinent. But the fact of the matter is Riley Leonard is a bit more of a skilled Ian Book and a larger Ian Book.
Mitch Jeter, I guess he only misses an August camp when we're there because, once again, he is now 24 for 26 in his career, 3 for 3 tonight. The faith in kicking a 46-yard field goal. I mean, the only way A&M can win is a blocked field goal right there, or if Notre Dame goes for it and something goes wrong on a pass attempt, you have to kick it because you have automatic Mitch, and he proved it again today. Now, this environment, once he made his first one, we talked about this maybe 3 weeks ago, I just want to see Mitch Jeter make his first field goal to A&M because then he's going to sail. Once the confidence is there, he's too good to have bad days.
I actually think he's 25 for 27, but I'll double check that. Yeah, he was great. I mean, 2 46-yarders. I was anticipating, frankly, in predicting the scores, which I did a very poor job as far as determining who the winner was. But I was anticipating 3 field goals from Mitch Jeter. And he did a great job. I spent certainly the entire first half and a large portion of the second half starting out with each snap watching Anthony Knapp, and he did a sensational job against Nick Scorton. And then they would move Scorton over to Emil Wagner's side, and he didn't do any better over on that side either. Now, running between the tackles at times was very difficult. And we know that Ashton Craig and Billy Strouth are going to be good offensive linemen. And we know that Sam Pendleton and we said this pregame, Sam Pendleton and Anthony Knapp are going to be good offensive linemen. Can they do it 2 hours from now? They did it. I mean, they really did it, and were resilient. And the fact that they, John, you point out all the stats, the fact that they had the kind of success that they had in the fourth quarter speaks a little bit to Loren Lando. There were guys that were really sucking wind, but when it came down to it, Notre Dame looked like the better conditioned football team.
Notre Dame, when it mattered the most, was dominant on the lines of scrimmage, both sides of the ball in the fourth quarter to get this win. You make a great point about Loren Lando. I think you make a great point about the toughness of this team, tying it together a little bit more on special teams, because a fabulous job from Yaji and Schmidt and all of those guys. It's not just that Mitch Jeter made those 3 kicks, or that James Rendell had his American college football debut and punted 5 times. Not a bunch of beauties, but for a 43-yard average. But the operations were so clean on all of those, and it was an entire operations department, basically, that had never operated in a game before. You had Reno Monteforte and another of the famous Salernos, Chris Salerno as the holder, and then I'm pretty sure you had Andrew Cross as the long snapper.
He was.
So 2 new long snappers, a brand new holder, and a punter and a kicker who had never kicked for you in this uniform before in an actual game. I just think I'll harp on the penalties, double-digit penalties, like I've noted. The third time, actually it's the third time just since North Carolina State of last year, 10, 11, and 12 penalties in 3 different games. NC State, Duke, Texas A&M, all 3 on the road, all 3 road wins. I think that speaks to an underlying belief that this team, this program, and this coaching staff have all in one another.
We can get back to the offense. We have to discuss Bo Collins stepping up, making a 20-yard play, making almost causing himself 15 yards on a penalty on that 20-yard play. I think he'll learn from that one in this situation. But the defense won the day for Notre Dame. We can talk about the offensive line rising to the occasion, Riley Leonard's grit. 13 points allowed, and at no point did you were surprised when A&M mounted their drive for the touchdown. That's what it's come down to. And I do think Howard Cross's usage in the first half was to allow him to play like that in the second half. He had the one big sack in the first half. He was out there the whole second half. I think Mills might have been the only guy affected. We heard some stuff about Mills might have been a little bit affected. He was not out there the entire time. Donovan Hines stepped up. Cross and Jordan Botello, if you're thinking off the top of your head, Jordan Botello had a fantastic third quarter and also made plays in the first quarter. He had one of his best days in Notre Dame uniform, and Cross had his typical day in a Notre Dame uniform with a little bit less action.
Tim, I would say that was Patello's best game because of the magnitude of this game and where it was. I mean, he had 6 tackles, which was second to Jack Kaiser's 8, and Patello had both Notre Dame quarterback hurries, and he was just, he was aggressive, he was confident, he was kind of barking a little bit. We saw some of the old, the Patello personality coming out.
You say aggressive and confident, Tim. He also stayed home. He also stayed home on the boundary. He was looking to leak out. You think they're going to get hit? Well, he was waiting right there. There was no play because of that.
Yeah.
How about Donovan Hines and Jalen Sneed? Clearly, they're younger guys. I think emphatically the best games of their young careers.
By far.
Sneed, he had it. And look, A&M ended up scoring a play or 2 later. It didn't matter. But Sneed had a chase down tackle behind the line of scrimmage down near the end zone that was really good. And there was another play, I commented on it to Tyler James. Sneed didn't make the tackle, but it was like 3rd and 10. Yes. And he started the blitz, and he saw from the right end that from his side on the right end, the left side of the Texas A&M offensive line, that Connor Wegman was about to flush right and was about to have a whole lot of real estate. Sneed books it down the line of scrimmage and forces Wegman to have to cut back in. Doesn't make the tackle, but Wegman gets 5 yards. Notre Dame makes the tackle. And if I'm not mistaken, Notre Dame got a defensive stop on the very next play. Might have been when Texas A&M turned the ball over on downs. But that was the type of mature play where we've heard he understands the game better. That was recognition combined with great athleticism. And it's not in any stat book, but when you watch the replay, I think that's one of the most significant games of the plays of the game defensively for Notre Dame.
Very quickly, Tim. turn it over to you defensively. We have a couple questions. Faison is an ankle injury, not an ACL. We've had a couple questions on that. Was Evans even playing? Evans did play. He played 5 or 6 third down passing situation snaps only. We said if Mitchell Evans was not playing at Texas A&M, he would not be playing in this game today. So that's just kind of wraps up the injuries on the offense.
Yeah, and I want to say about Drake Bowen. I mean, this is the first significant playing time that he's had in an environment like this, and the importance of it. He was good. He was good, and there were a couple. He had 4 tackles, 3 solo, which I think tied for second on the defense. But I know there was 1 or 2 plays where he penetrated and allowed somebody else to make a play. I mean, for his first start, I thought it was really a dynamic performance. Jaden Osbury had 4 tackles. I think Jaden Osbury is just the kind of guy that's always going to show up around the football. I don't know in relation to his linebacker teammates how many snaps he'll get, but when he gets them, they will be effective ones. Adon Schuler gets his first interception.
I think Xavier Watts got his first career interception tonight too, Tim.
No, I think he just added to a long list. That's number. Well, yeah, he had 7 last year, and he had 7 in his career going into the day, and he had another one. And those guys are, Adon Schuler is not a surprise to us. So we had seen him make strides in the spring. We saw him, in August, and it wasn't a surprise that he, quote, beat out Rod Hurd, but Rod Hurd has a role on this team too. He's very versatile. He can play multiple spots, and we'll have opportunities to do that. So, Christian Gray he did things today that were very positive and exactly what we expected out of him. It was just it was a great team effort. Nobody necessarily put up huge stats individually, but as a team defense, and that's why, I love ultimately in retrospect, you love the aggression of going for 4th and 1 in the third quarter. At the time, you're thinking, is this really? Because Tim, remember you said even if they convert it, they still have 70 yards to go for.
Still have to go 70 yards, and it wasn't the offense that was going to go 70 yards.
But that's Mike Denbrock and Marcus Freeman saying, you know what, we've got a matchup here. We like our offensive line. We think we can, we'll pound it on 3rd down, pound it on 4th down, and we think that we can get it. They converted the one. They did not convert the other. But if you look at the replay, Riley Leonard clearly crossed the mark for the first down, and that should have continued. I guess it was a little difficult to overturn the call, but if you look at replays, he clearly had gained the first down. So, they took a very aggressive approach to it. And hey, Leonard Moore's in there when Benjamin Morrison runs to the locker room, and they have confidence to throw Leonard Moore in there too. So the job that Al Golden is doing is he just keeps building upon a great resume, and he just keeps adding to the exploits of this defense.
Neither team very good on the money downs, 3rd and 4th downs, but Notre Dame finishes 3 of 15. I think 2 of those 3 conversions came very late in the game, 4th quarter or something like that, or in the second half, I should say. Texas A&M finishes 4 of 17 overall, but 0 of 2 on 4th down. And I think that's most significant. Obviously, the late one, you felt like that's the one that sealed the game for Notre Dame. But that first one that they didn't get, I'm telling you, you're having a good day as a coach if you make your headset counterpart change who he is. And I think Marcus Freeman's aggression made Mike Elko change who he is there in the 3rd quarter, because he went for it on a couple of instances that I don't think Mike Elko normally would go for it, especially the way his defense was playing. So I just think that's a little bit of the game within the game that I think went the way of the Notre Dame coaching staff.
As much as the offensive line was a surprise in their overall performance, there was a lot of stuff that we talked about how it would go, and it did exactly. I said if anybody could get to 33% on 3rd and 4th down, they would win the game. Nobody got there, but Notre Dame was a little bit better. There'd be more punts than touchdowns. That was the lock of the year. You got to find one of those prop bets on this game next time, because there was no chance teams were going to have to punt more than the touchdown scored. And honestly, converting on 3rd and 4th down is something Notre Dame is going to get better at. Riley Leonard is going to be a weapon on 3rd and 4th down, and Mitchell Evans will be back on 3rd and 4th down for this team. They were always going to struggle to throw this ball. I think Priest, we were walking, we're like, let's see how Riley Leonard throws. And we're both like, that's not going to be very good. It's not going to be great today. He's not going to have a great day passing wondering, no matter what he says, he's wondering about his offensive line a little bit. Mike Elko's bringing stuff from everywhere. We talked to Leonard post-game. He's like, yeah, he got me a few times where I just didn't see the protections. The offense will improve. Mike Denbrock warned, is that the right word? On August 15th, our offense, I want people to judge our offense of how much better we get. He knew it would be tough sledding today.
Yeah. You know, Riley Leonard, we knew he'd run at double-digit times. It was 12 times for 63 yards. And I want to jump.
Let's keep that. Let's get that down to eight next week.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Next week, and then maybe for a couple of weeks. Don't want to take them for granted. There will be some level of emotional letdown with Northern Illinois coming in, but one thing at a time. I want to go back to. They didn't make Connor Wegman look ordinary. They made him look bad. I mean, they flat out made him look bad. He was 12 for 30, 2 interceptions, 100 yards. He was sacked once. And here's the other thing. And they lost a lot at wide receiver. You know, there's no doubt about that. But I thought that they had some guys, Jade Walker, Cyrus Ellen came from Louisiana Tech. He had good numbers. They do a decent job of throwing the ball to Le'Veon Moss, who caught 5. He was targeted 5 times. Noah Thomas has some length. You know, you thought it was a decent wide receiver core, but between what they did with Wegman and what they did with that receiving core, they are subpar. But no, of course, Notre Dame secondary had a lot to do with that.
And Moss had a nice catch, but in a play that shades of Sam Hartman going out of bounds a yard short a year ago against Ohio State, he cut inside the chain. That forced Texas A&M to have to punt from the 24. That set up Notre Dame's possession that led to the go-ahead and what proved to be the game-winning touchdown run from Jeremiah Love. I think that's a football IQ play that obviously A&M didn't make. I don't think we'll see Notre Dame make those kinds of plays, maybe with the frequency that at times we saw the Irish make them a year ago. And I also think that some of Connor Wegman's misses and some of the receivers' misses were because Notre Dame was in their heads a little bit. The pressure number in the post-game book saying I think Notre Dame only had 2 quarterback hurries or something. I'm a little surprised by that because I thought there were more times than that.
Yeah, they'll have a lot more.
Yeah, come Monday when we get the Notre Dame stats, it'll be a lot different.
Pro Football Focus will have it like 17 times that many.
Yeah,
But I want to point out real fast because Kevin M says I absolutely disagree.
Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you about.
That it was an intelligent call to go for it on 4th down at their own 35 and then at the 50.
No, I'm not. No, it was ballsy is what it was.
Just the plan. It was the plan. Marcus Freeman said post game, we planned if it's 4th and 1, we're going for it from this area, which I assume is most of the field. If it's 4th and 2, we're going for it from this area, which is midfield. I was concerned on the 4th and 2 because you looked down, you thought that's not a yard. You could tell it wasn't a long one. It was a legit 2. And I do think he got it, but it doesn't matter because you put it in the measurement's hands. That's how close it is. These guys are going to shove you back too. Riley Leonard's a big dude. He's not running to those guys and knocking all these guys over on 4th and 2 if he's upright. If he's too far upright.
If I said it was an intelligent move, I misspoke because no, it was a gutsy move.
Gutsy, yeah, it was a gutsy move. It was a plan. They had a plan. That was what
they had a plan, and it. I mean, to me, and I asked Marcus Freeman about this afterwards. I mean, it's like we're going to be aggressive. We are going to try to win the game. I didn't agree with it. I hear you, but we're sitting here talking about a Notre Dame victory. So, I think that's just all part of Marcus Freeman's growth. He probably wouldn't have tried that last year or the year before, but he has a great deal of confidence in this team. And you can see by the way this team plays that they are gaining greater confidence in themselves as they move forward.
And just real quickly on Faison, I know we touched on it a little bit and said it was an ankle, not an ACL or anything like that. And Marcus Freeman specifically saying, Jeremy came back up to him and said, I'm good, coach. I'm okay. I would be surprised if Faison plays next week against Northern Illinois. May not see him again until the Louisville game with I think, or maybe Miami of Ohio with Purdue really struggling the week after that for a road game. But again, not a ligament injury. And Marcus Freeman sharing with us directly that Faison told him point blank, I'm good, coach.
I think we mentioned this, but Coach Hump has such a good point. I'm going to mention it again. Don't fail to mention the great job Mike Mickens is doing, especially having a true freshman in Leonard Moore, who was not an early enrollee. We often mention how great of a job Mike Mickens is doing, and that was another part we did talk about pregame, Tim. I don't know which defensive line is going to play better. I know which secondary is going to play better.
No,
National analysts were wrong about Notre Dame's secondary being vulnerable in this game. That was never
Nick Saban was wrong.
That was never a thing. That was never part of this game, especially. And Wegman could have been hot, and they would not have had a bad day. The secondary is better than other teams' receivers and quarterbacks starting today through game 12.
Yeah, and in fairness to Nick Saban, we were talking about this earlier in the day. These guys on national TV, it is impossible for them to know everything about every team that they're talking about. And Nick Saban was talking about the knowledge base that he had about that. But no, you're right, Tim. 2 All-Americans. Christian Gray is, I don't know if he'll ever. I don't know if he'll ever be an All-American, but he's going to be one hell of a. He's already becoming a.
I think he'll be an All-American.
Yeah. I think there's certainly a chance of that, and Don Schuler. They've got it going on back there, and Mike Mickens is one hell of a coach, and the progress that he made with Benjamin Morrison a couple years ago, the progress that he made with Cam Hart, he's a hell of a coach. They're good.
He's a hell of a freaking evaluator too, boys. We've talked about it a bunch, but he found Sauce Gardner before anybody found him at Cincinnati, and had much stronger opinions with him than Marcus Freeman did. And
Marcus Freeman said he didn't see it in Sauce.
Yeah, so Marcus Freeman has admitted that. I'm not spilling any tea here, but Mickens was really high on Ben Morrison, Christian Gray. I think they're seeing some Sauce Gardner traits already in Leonard Moore. I think that's important to note. That's been whispered around the Goog that he's reminiscent of Sauce Gardner as a freshman, and maybe better than Sauce Gardner as a freshman.
He really has excellent length. And I remember in one of our first practice sessions, our 5-period observation, seeing him and Carson Hobbs. They like Carson Hobbs too, but he's not quite ready. And it was like, you know what? They're both listed the same height, but clearly Leonard Moore has more length to him. And, they weren't afraid to throw him in there. You still have Jaden Mickey. Jaden Mickey gave up a 3rd down conversion.
That's going to happen, though.
It's going to happen.
Dreadful coverage. It just sort of happened.
No, but he needs to get better. This is 3rd year, and he needs to get better. But everybody else, everybody else has really taken incremental steps up.
As much as I like this, Andrew Cochran, anyone mentioned that this was our first W against a ranked SEC team on the road in 20 years. There's 2 things about that. The last one was in JB's stomping grounds against Tennessee. Also, that Notre Dame team beating Tennessee just didn't matter all that much in the national scheme of things. It was Tyrone Willingham's last year. He was fired a month later. And how many have they played? Georgia? Like 0-1 in the last 20 years. It's not like it's that on the SEC road games. They don't do a lot of SEC road games.
No, they don't. I mean, they've never been to Auburn. They've never been to Arkansas.
LSU's been over 25 years, so I think it's it's a big win. Look, number 2, number 20, part of Texas, go in and win this game. We need to bring this up because I teased it pregame instant analysis. If they win, it's the biggest, most important win for Notre Dame to start a season since 2018 when it shot them to 12-0. If they lose, we're talking about how, Texas A&M is a really good team. Notre Dame tried really hard. They deserve a lot of credit with their young offensive line, but JB pointed out, no, it is time. Al Golden, Mike Denbrock, Marcus Freeman, 3rd year, all the veterans you could want. You have an All-American up front, 2 All-Americans in the back, Jack Kaiser in the middle. You have to win this game, and they did find the way.
Yeah, and
I had to win this game tonight.
I was in the Neyland Stadium press box 20 years ago in that game. That I think.
How come you didn't say hi to me, JB?
You were so arrogant in your tweed jacket.
I knew
that. I just absolutely.
I don't think I was wearing jackets yet at that time.
But Notre Dame turned that game around in 2004 when they injured Eric Ainge on like the last play of the first half when Philip Fulmer got bizarrely aggressive. And I think Notre Dame ended up winning 17-13, 17-10. Tennessee ended up being a 10-win team that beat the hell out of Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl that year. But Notre Dame upsetting them that day really changed the trajectory of their season. And to your point about the not many SEC games, there's a lot of SEC teams that haven't had the courage to play Notre Dame home and away.
Yeah.
Arkansas did at least have it scheduled, and it got messed up because of the COVID year and everything else recently.
I want to point out, and I want to say this because he is a colleague of ours now in the industry. It was Mike Goolsby that had the big play in that Tennessee game at the end. Mike Goolsby had a great game against Tennessee in that one. But it's Notre Dame doesn't play a whole lot of SU teams down here, but now they're 1-1 their last 2 chances.
Yeah, Tim, somebody pointed out something about KVA was in on that 4th and 2. He had 3 tackles. He is just so naturally comfortable. As soon as he started practicing with Notre Dame, it was obvious he was very comfortable doing that. I thought he looked comfortable tonight, aggressive, physical. Think about the performance of Bowen and KVA in their first game in this venue. It's impressive.
And I'm glad you said that because I want to wrap it up here soon. But Chef in Tech said, "How was being at Kyle Field for you guys?" We could get into that because it was an incredible atmosphere down there. This place is massive, John. I'm not sure. I haven't been to Knoxville in 20 years. I was there twice, and I said it, and I stood in the top row, and I was never on the field in my life during a game. This feels like the biggest place I've been. I've actually never been on the field in Knoxville.
The view that we have out here as I'm looking into the stadium is like the third deck is in heaven. It's just
Riley Leonard said I couldn't see the end of the stadium. He looked up and I could not see the end of the stadium.
You just stole my anecdote there. They actually station air traffic controllers on the top floor, the top row of the upper decks on each end. No, I'm joking. This is the largest
I thought
stadium.
you were telling the truth.
This is the largest stadium in Texas. We heard that, I don't know, about 19 times today because it's part of their public address systems announcement every time that being at Kyle Field is discussed. But it was a great environment. We felt the stadium shake pregame. We felt it shake a few times when it got loud. In the second half, particularly, you feel the press box quite literally swaying back and forth. It was really good. I've not been to a whiteout in Happy Valley. I would like to do that, but this was 107,500. They've squeezed in 111,000 here, right just short of 111 last year against Ole Miss. Then set it with 111 for George Strait earlier this year. They left a little happier that day.
Indeed, the press box was absolutely swaying back and forth, and that's a little bit unsettling.
I'm impressed that they have a warning. Don't worry, our press box is going to shake, or whatever that said.
Yeah, they do. That
was wildly intimidating when I read that.
It's kind of like the skyscrapers in San Francisco. It's actually been constructed to be able to sway like that. But it is, if you don't read the warning label, it is disconcerting.
It is midnight. We have stories to write. I'd like to thank John Bryce of footballscoop.com, Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, and Kyle Field for providing me with this Irish green background. Thank you for watching.
Sorry for the
Irish Illustrated Overtime, Notre Dame 23, Texas A&M 13.